This is a video for how to go about creating a dimensioned drawing of number 15 from your 20 ISOs project in Fusion 360. One thing I want to show you real quick is you can right click on one of these parts and go to new drawing from design, but you're going to notice that it doesn't automatically open that template that we are using for the classes that I teach. It's going to go to a default template. Now we don't want that default template, so if by chance you knew that you could right click and go to a new drawing, you want to make sure that you're using the template that's within your project folder. So if we double click on number 15, we go to design, we go to drawing, and from design it's going to automatically show that title block that I have saved within this project folder. So that is one of the benefits of having that title block saved within the project that you're working on. So once our drawing sheet loads, we're going to go to a 1:3 scale, and we're going to go ahead and just place our front view, and we're going to say OK, and we're going to go to projected, and we're going to project our front, or excuse me, our top, our side, and our ISO. We're going to right click and say OK. Right click and say OK. We're going to double click on our part, and we're going to go to shaded. Shade the view, say close. Now we're going to go up and go ahead and just start saying save. Save as early as you can. In previous videos I haven't been saving as early as we probably should. Sometimes you just get working and forget to save, but let's go ahead and say save, and we're going to go up and place our center marks. So we have for ourselves 3 small holes here, and we have ourselves 1 large hole and 1 large arc here. You won't see much of a difference with the arc because it'll just give you just that small little plus shape, but we do have 3 small holes and 1 large hole here. We're going to go up to center line bisector, and we're going to give ourselves a center line between that hole, and we have these 2 center lines to bisect in our front view, and we have 3 holes to do center line bisectors for in our side view. So lots of graphic communication going on as we get further and further into parts that have more features in them. So as we start looking at our part, one thing we'll do first is I always like to do the holes first, and then the your height, width, and depth dimensions second. So one thing we'll notice is as we go into dimensions, each one of these holes on the outside have a diameter of 1. So we're going to go ahead and just place one of these here. Let's just choose this angle here, kind of drag out a diagonal angle. Remember that when you place a leader line, which these arrows with the lines that are pointing to the holes, those are known as leader lines. They lead you to the features. So I'm not going to go straight down, and I'm not going to go, straight over. I'm just going to drag out at a diagonal line, and I'm going to click. We're going to right click and say OK, and there's 3 holes with a diameter of 1. We'll double click, spacebar times 3, and hit enter. We're going to have for ourselves really 3 arcs, I believe, that have the same radius. So there's a radius of 150, there's a radius of 150, and this one has a radius of 2, excuse me. So this one right here, we're just going to click, and let's just drag out at an angle. Right click and say OK. We're going to double click, spacebar, excuse me here. Let's go ahead and double click. It was talking to me. Times 2. I think I accidentally highlighted the whole thing. We're going to hit enter. We have an arc down here. We're going to go up to our dimensions, and we're going to click and drag out, and that will be a radius of 2 placed there. So we have all of our radial dimensions basically done as far as the arcs go. Now this is a half circle up here at the top. We will need to come in and place a radius dimension for this. So I'm going to go ahead and click with a radius of 2, and again we'll have ourselves a diameter dimension for a hole, and we're going to click and drag out again with a diagonal line. All leader lines are diagonal, and we're going to place that with a diameter of 2. So when we look up here at the top, we're going to be able to tell what the width of the object is by multiplying the 1.5 by 2, because we have this arc radius here, and that radius lines up perfectly at this kind of 90-degree angle. I would say, when you zoom in on this, think of, north, south, east, and west. Well, this line right here is a perfect straight vertical line that would go right into the side. So we're going to try to find the full width of the object. We're going to be able to say in dimension that from our center point of this object here, if I zoom in, I'm going to clicked on a line accidentally. If I go to dimension, I just want to click on that center point, that center hole right there. When you see the circle show up, click, and I'm going to drag straight down, and the distance from between both those holes is 7. So I can take 1.5 times 2 is 3, plus 7 is 10. That's the full width of the object. There's no need to give a full width dimension. So that's one of the benefits of going in and actually dimensioning your radius and diameter dimensions first, is you can kind of give yourself a little bit of a head start before you start dimensioning any width dimensions, because you know exactly what you're going to have to do as far as width goes. That's the only width dimension that we'll place that isn't a radius dimension. So our depth dimensions we'll look at next. So the full depth of the object, we have 1.5 right here, which comes over to this point, and we need to find a location dimension between these two as well. So what we're going to say is, from a dimension standpoint, we're just going to say, you know, from here to here is 4.5, and then from here to here is 1.5. And we're keeping everything adjacent because remember, depth dimensions are between these two views. So I can basically just take 1.5 plus 1.5 is 3 plus 4.5 is 7.5. That is the full depth. I really don't want to come in and, you know, just start placing a dimension that goes from here to here, because you're really just being redundant, because you're kind of saying that you can't tell how to add up dimensions, and plus I'd be dragging more extension lines all over the place. I just want to keep this the way that it is. So we know our location dimensions for each one of these holes, because we know that from the side in to the center point, each one of these holes is just 1.5. So if this theoretically here was a rectangle, we could just measure in 1.5, measure in 1.5 from the side, and we'd have those center points. All we have left to do now is height dimensions. And so if I drag this in just a little bit, sometimes I like to bring the view in a little bit if I know I just have a few dimensions to do. And in this particular case, all we really have is just the height of this ledge, of this little line right here. If the line shows up, sometimes you're just better off just clicking the points, and I'm just going to drag out, and that's 1. And for the sake of this video, I'm going to say from our center line down to the bottom is going to be 5, and I'm going to drag that out. It's snapped automatically. Sometimes you have to click and drag these out a little bit so they don't snap. So you might be thinking, well, then what's the full height of the object? It's 5 plus 2. Our extension line right here would go directly right into this horizontal line of our center mark, and we can add 2 to it since that's a radius dimension. So from here up to here would be 2. 5 plus 2 is 7. We know that this ledge right here is 1. One other thing we can do that I didn't do at the beginning is click on center mark up here, and let's click on this arc, and it'll give us a little center point out here for where that arc begins. I forgot to place that at the beginning, but looking back through and doing a quick audit, I always like to go through and audit dimensions before I actually get done with them and, let's say, turn them in. But this would be really all you need to place for all dimensions to be accounted for with this object. You notice that there's not a ton of lines and a ton of arrows all over the place. I mean, we saved ourselves a ton of ink by putting ×3 and ×2. We're going to say that we're kind of insulting the designer's intelligence a little bit, or let's say the manufacturer's intelligence, by trying to make them, you know, just like we're trying to say that the, you know, the full width was, what do we say, 10. We don't need a full width of 10 dimension, because we know that they can read the drawing and do simple addition to find those full dimensions. So this has been a video on how to go about creating a fully functioning working drawing from number 15 in your 20 ISOs project in Fusion 360.